The way that we do the recruitment process with the phone interviews, we have somewhere between 5 and 7 questions generally to get us through a 10-minute phone interview. What happens and what I've just done is go through those and we score 4 of those questions because 3 of them predominantly are just around practical considerations. So they're either like yes, no's, pretty much, so we don't score those. And what I do at the end of the scoring is also make a number of notes because I'm making an assumption, I guess that's fair to say, based on the person I've spoken to, based on what I've seen from their CV, based on the responses that they give me to the questions of what they would fit into, what they wouldn't fit into, where that fit connects, what they've got experience in and what they haven't got experience in. So in something like this, for example, somebody might talk a lot about the client delivery side, but not talk about the commercial side, or they might talk more about the commercial and the sales side, but not so much the client delivery side. And we're generally looking for a nice hybrid match across the board. Also, it really helps because I score as I go. So I'm like, okay, and I score quite harsh. It's why it's really important that the same person does the same part of the process. You can have different people doing part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, but the same person has to do all of part 1. The same person has to do all of part 2, part 3, part 4. Otherwise, what you have is a difference in the way that they score, and it's really hard then to compare how that goes. And when I take notes, I'm literally just trying to pick out the key words. I'm trying to pick out those kind of real power words, the magic words, those really on point that match the KPIs for the JD. I know that really tightly, and I know exactly what I would say if I was being interviewed and how I would get myself into the next stage. But I try and approach this from an HR perspective. I've got very clear questions. I've got very clear criteria of how I'm going to score it. I've got the job description over here. I've got the CV. I get LinkedIn profiles up as well, just so I can match up. And then I basically ask the questions. I note down all the keywords that they're putting through which match into the JD, and I can score off that. Then I make my own personal recommendations off the back into a notes section where I talk about what I feel they've got a good grasp on, what they haven't, what they did mention, what they didn't mention, where I think they may or may not do well. And that will be everything from the understanding I have of the role, which I can run off the JD, but obviously I've been able to have the conversation with our hiring team or with the team internally that are going to manage this, that want that role, so I understand what they need from it as well. And I'm also looking at the cultural side. So I look at all those aspects and that gives me that final score. And then obviously once we've done everybody, we can compare and we can get a benchmark and then we have a look. It doesn't necessarily mean that if you haven't met that average score, you don't go through to the next stage. It's just a really good way for us to be able to calibrate everybody together. So that's kind of what I've just done in that process. And I'll do that now 9 times. So it takes 9 minutes, 10 minutes to do a call. And it's a really good way to whittle out. I'm going to use the word really good way to whittle out. I'm just going to save this one and close it. Because what does happen is you speak to people and you go through and it's fine and you ask about salary expectations and this happens quite regularly. People go, oh, what was the salary again? And you're, okay, well, it wasn't the JD, it is in the ad, but you tell them what the salary is and they're like, yeah, that's okay. Oh, actually, I was thinking a little bit more. Well, I'm on more than that at the moment. Oh, no, it doesn't fit. So it's like, okay, you can tell quite quickly then, where's that going to go? And that's one of the reasons we do phone interviews, because what we're trying to do is whittle that out, because what we don't want to do is bring people into an actual interview for 45 minutes to an hour potentially, depending on the level of the role, go through all of that process, right at the end of it for them to go, oh, actually, it doesn't pay enough, or I didn't look at the salary properly, I assumed it'd be more, I assumed it'd be this. So that's quite a common one. So that's to save everybody time, and I'd rather take 10 minutes now to save 2 of our directors and that candidate's time, so 3 hours of time down the line. It's the same with things like hybrid roles and working on site and stuff like that. Locations are really important. Do people recognize what that means and where they have to travel to and what that's going to work? So try to just whittle all of that out as well as understand, do you actually know what the role is, and so on and so forth. I don't hold it against them if they don't ask questions. I think that people are quite nervous in interviews, so therefore I think that it's important to try and make people feel comfortable quickly, especially in face-to-face interviews, because then you can see the real person. And I always think the way I approach interviews is you're not trying to catch somebody out, you're trying to put them into an environment where they can show you the best side of them and be honest with you. And I think when people ask questions, it does show a different level of confidence. You know, we will see people across the board that don't ask questions of us, and I think sometimes that's a confidence thing. They don't want to, because the job market's tough. It is really, really tough out there. So, and I see that all the time. I hear that from people I speak to, especially in one-to-one interviews or face-to-face interviews. I hear regularly, it's a tough market. I saw that with the year roll, people saying there's so many people. And we see that, you know, we'll put up a job, we'll never have less than 100 applicants now. We just don't get less than 100. Even if we put out a cleaner's job in an attraction, we'll get over 100 applicants. If we put out our CEO job, we'll get over 100 applicants. That's just the number now. So I think that what you get is that there's a confidence piece. I think that when people don't ask the key questions, I wouldn't say it's a flag, it's just an awareness. And there's certain roles I wouldn't expect that. I wouldn't necessarily expect somebody coming into some of the lower roles. I never know what to call them, because I don't like to call them lower, because they're not lower, they're super important. But I guess the roles that people would see, you know, hierarchical, are further down the ladder. You're not going to get as many questions coming back because it is a different level. If I was interviewing, for example, for a director at that kind of C-suite level and they didn't ask questions, that would definitely be a flag for me. Would I hold it against them? Possibly not, but it would definitely be a flag. But I think that it's more about the questions they do ask. And I had somebody, it was a long time ago now, but I remember, I think I probably put a video about this out ages ago, so it'll be deep in the depths of YouTube somewhere with 5 views. Is somebody once asked me in an interview, a candidate once asked me, we did the interview, finished, and I said, do you have any questions? And they said, yes. And what was the exact question? It was something like, what else can I have done to give you confidence in me to do this job? Or what else do you need to see from me today to give you confidence to know that I'm the best person for this job? And I was like, whoa, what a great question. And I was sat there, and what that made me do was go back through everything they'd answered and almost on the spot say, no, you are the best person for the job, or you're not the best person for the job, and this is the reason why. And what was so clever about that was, because if I've gone, well, I'd also like to see, you know, more talk about commerciality, or I would like to have seen from you the understanding of you know, more into the numbers and how we're going to generate more of a profit, or how are you going to assess the customer value, or how are you going to assess the customer experience. What's so clever about that is that gives them the opportunity right there and then in front of you to then answer that question and go, oh, well, here's the reason why. Because nerves and because of the way conversations flow, you don't always get that out. So I thought that was really clever, and it took me back to years and years and years ago. One of my first interviews, I can remember when I was in leisure, and I never wanted to go into management. I was like, oh, managers don't want to be a manager. And one of my best friends became a manager, and I watched him go through the transition. I was like, dude, I'm so fucking jealous. I really want to do that. Like, that looks, I want to do what you're doing. And that inspired me, it really inspired me to go for it. So when the next manager job came up, I went for it. And I was getting my feedback, and I worked really, really hard from it. A story for another time. But when I got the feedback from the attraction manager who ran the site, he, or the legislative manager, he went through and he was like, you were doing so well, Joel, you were taking there, you were talking about all the experiences, talking about how you were going to do different things, how you were going to grow this for the customers, how you can grow it for the business. He goes, and you were flipping the flip chart, it was really, really good, it was really good. He goes, and I was hoping that the next flip was going to be the commercial page, was the numbers, and it just never came. And he went, for that reason, we're not going to give you the role. And I was like, oh man, that's going. But what did happen was, he said, because you've done so well here though, and we didn't expect that from you, we're going to train you as a relief duty manager, and therefore when people go on holiday or when they're sick, you'll be able to step straight into that fray. So we'll train you into that, and then when the next job comes up, you'll be really well placed for it. And that's exactly what happened, and that set me really, really well in my career. Had I asked the question during the interview, what else can I show you, or what do you feel that I might have missed that would make me the best person for the job? And he said there and then, well, I've not seen any financials. I could have quickly flipped over the chart and said, well, let me take you through it, and gone bang, 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 bang. And that would have put me into a great position. So I think that's a long-winded answer, Jordan, to your question about questions. But I think, yeah, it shows a lot of confidence. And I think the type of questions that people ask. One thing that's been really interesting to me about recruitment and where I think it's changed is it used to be you'd choose your candidate, okay, that's the person that we want. You'd pick up the phone to them and you'd say, hey, I want to offer you the role, so on and so forth. And they'd be like, yeah, that's great, brilliant, yeah, definitely accept it, no worries. That still happens, but it's on provision of reviewing contracts, reviewing handbooks, reviewing the whole process. And what actually happens now, especially in more senior roles, is people will go, yes, I want to take the job. Then you get into the detail. And I think it's exactly the same as doing a business deal where we will agree effectively on buying something for a price or selling something for a price as an overview. This is what we're going to do. Then we've got to get into the detail. And in the job world, that detail is the terms of employment, it's the handbook, it's the company policies, it's all those processes. And that takes a bit of time to get through. And I used to be in a position going, oh God, it's really annoying that this person's taking so long to answer the question. Like, why don't they just give us a formal answer to yes? But actually, I think that due diligence that person's doing shows a lot of, I guess, gumption. It shows a lot of intelligence, I think, because the bottom line is when you employ somebody, that probation period, traditionally 3 months, all the risk is on the employee. All of it. If somebody is leaving another job to come and work for you, they've got a 3-month window which they have, very little, I would say, control over. But to a degree it is. That 3-month window is really nervous for somebody because they could get terminated at any point in there. They're constantly on probation all the time. They have to perform really, really well. And ultimately, that's a big risk for somebody. You leave potentially a good job to come do that, there is a risk. Whereas after 3 months, once probation's passed, all the risk then sits with the employer. So it's important that you have the 3-month probation window. I do think that's really, really key. But I think probations are more about, again, you've chosen somebody to do the job because you believe they're the best person for it and they're going to be the best person to do it. So you've got to support them to do that job and you want them to be successful in the job. The probation is more about if something goes catastrophic, i.e. they've really led you down a garden path during the interview process and you've hired somebody that's not who you think you've hired, that's what the probation period, I think, is for. So yeah, it's done like that. But I'm just going to prep for the next interview. So it's very simple for me. I've created all the matrices, which I talked about this morning. So I'm going to close down the one I've got. So that's all done, that's fine. I'm going to open up the next one. He says confidently, because I don't even know who I'm interviewing next. And this is the beauty of doing it like this. I do think there is a strength that I literally have it in the diary. I don't want to know too much about these candidates really, because I want to be able to gauge them together. I want to be able to gauge it for myself as we go without having too much information beforehand, because I don't want to make any preconceptions of the person. So, although I do make slight preconceptions based on the CV style, I also make some preconceptions about whether people have LinkedIn profiles or not. I do, I'm sorry, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, I do have again, it depends on the level of role. If you're going to, yeah, if you're coming in for the cleaner role or a CSA role, or to work in the restaurants, or if you're going to work in any of those kind of on-site roles, then I'm not as precious about it. But I think if you're going to work in a professional role, that's worded really badly, a professional. If you're going to work more in the business suite teams, the centralized teams, then I kind of feel like you would have a LinkedIn profile. But I guess, I've met some brilliant people. I was chatting to somebody the other day that I'd love for them to come work for us. I really, really would. I think they're fantastic and I'd love for them to come join us. they don't have a LinkedIn. Well, they do have a LinkedIn profile, but they don't use it like at all. Like, so, yeah, I just think it's I think it's a good thing to have, but then I guess it's another social media profile for people, isn't it?